What's up, guys? Today I wanted to talk a little bit about CO2 systems. As you probably know, the tank behind me, I've been messing with CO2 for a while. I had the inline reactor right over there. After I just posted a video of me messing with the filter, I changed it again. I took the inline reactor out, turned the filter inlet out this way, and just have it going straight into the tank, as you can see. And now, as you've probably noticed, I'm running just a little diffuser. It's turned up way too much right now. I don't know why that is. I've been messing with stuff, just trying to see what I can do. There's not really anything other than snails in here right now, and they should be able to handle the CO2. This is like a day-by-day thing. It changes. But yeah, anyways, basically what I want to talk about is why I switched CO2 setups and why I think a diffuser, like in this setup, is much better for smaller tanks than the reactor. Basically, my problem was, let me grab the reactor real quick so I can just show you. Where is it? Okay, so this is a CO2 reactor. The way it works is water gets pumped into the reactor right here, into this thing, and you can see, actually I can take this thing apart. They unscrew at the bottom, there's a little bit of water left over, and this whole assembly comes out. So this goes up at the top, these guys spin, or they're supposed to spin, and you get CO2 diffusion. So as the water comes in, spins those little guys. This gets like pinned up into this little thing a little bit. But anyways, obviously, to keep these spinning, you need a certain amount of flow. And the filter that I had just wasn't putting out enough flow, basically, to spin them effectively. So I just had times all the time where I'd look over and see this thing not spinning at all, and this much CO2 just filled up at the top, and I'd have to gas it off and restart again so it would start flowing. And it just wasn't spinning fast enough to keep up with the amount of CO2 I wanted to be using in this tank. So I had to keep it down to like a half a bubble or 1 bubble per second, which is really low. Because what I want to be running, it's way too high right now. I just turned it back on, and I was messing with it, and I didn't realize how high I turned it up. But yeah, so forgot what I was saying. But anyways, so what I want to be running is close to there, probably a little bit more than that, but I have it timed, so it's CO2 comes on for an hour, lights come on, CO2 cuts off, and then an hour later lights cut off, so there's no CO2 still in the tank when the lights go off. The plants use it all up, basically. But yeah, so in a tank where you don't have a lot of flow, like a smaller tank where you don't use a giant canister filter, a reactor just isn't necessarily a viable option. I'm sure there are other reactors out there on the market that are smaller than this and have smaller wheels that could be turned by something like that, but in my opinion, it's a small tank. You're not going to use a lot of CO2, so it doesn't really matter if I lose a little bit of like, say this diffuses 100% of the CO2, or 99% is what they say. And that diffuses, actually, I don't even know, probably 60 to 70 to 80% of the CO2. You're not using that much CO2. Like, I have a 5-pound tank. It's going to take months for this to, at this rate, it's going to take months to use up all that CO2. But in a larger tank, where you do have a lot of circulation and a lot of flow, the CO2 reactor is definitely the better option, because it diffuses all of the CO2. You won't be wasting any CO2, which in a big tank where you're running a lot more CO2, you have a lot more water volume, you have to run a lot more CO2 to have higher concentrations, you don't want to waste anything. But in a smaller tank like this, it doesn't matter really, because we don't use a lot in the first place. But and in a tank like that, obviously you have enough flow with a filter to keep this spinning at a higher rate. My filter is probably flowing at around 150, I'd say, if I had to ballpark it, 150 gallons per hour. I want more flow, but to get that flow, I'm probably going to put in power heads. I won't jack up the filtration. I thought about getting like a 500 gallon per hour pump, just to bump it up and be able to use this again, but I don't think it's really worth it. This filter is a little bit beefy for a 20 gallon. Obviously the whole point of that is this kind of filter is to save money on larger tanks where you need 5 gallons worth of filtration volume wise. But it's a little overkill in this. I might change it around, but I don't want to change the look of things. I like the way it's coming together, so I'm probably going to leave it. Anyways, yeah, that's why I don't think you should use reactors on smaller tanks, and why you should use reactors on bigger tanks. Obviously, there are different things that come into play. Obviously, if someone's running a high flow canister filter, or maybe if you found a smaller reactor that I haven't found, you can do this, but for the most part, diffusers work pretty well, and it looks pretty good. The main thing, like looks going to that way, the main thing that drew me to the reactor was that it was inline, so I wouldn't see it in my tank. I've never liked the look of anything in the tanks that's like, I was talking to someone the other day, just imagine there was a big, bulky hang on the back power filter, even like a nice aqua clear. It would ruin the entire aesthetic of the tank. That's why I do glass lily pipes, clear flexible hosing, and a glass diffuser. Or that's why I was using a reactor that was in line, so you would never see it. But it doesn't ruin it that bad. It looks kind of nice. I don't like that there's a suction cup on the front of the glass, but I mean, it does a good job so far. And it looks kind of nice. But yeah, plants are loving it. Still having a bit of an algae issue, but I'm going to be getting back on like a daily water change schedule to try to drop nitrates down to 0 for a few days, see if I can take care of the algae. And other than that, tank's doing good. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video on CO2 systems and smaller tanks. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. If you like what I'm doing, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you next time.